Welcome back to Football Daily, where today we bring you 10 players who beefed with football fans. 10. Wayne Rooney. We begin our list with Wayne Rooney. England's record goalscorer has encountered plenty of controversy during an otherwise stellar playing career, and during his younger years was known for possessing a rather short temper. But his most famous outburst came at the 2010 World Cup. England had just put in a woeful performance against Algeria in the group stages to draw 0-0, in a match considered by some to be the worst England game in living memory. Unsurprisingly, the national team were greeted by a chorus of boos from the fans who had travelled to South Africa to watch them at the final whistle. But Rooney did not hold the same view. The Man United striker was so incensed by the reaction coming from the stands that he just had to say something. As he strolled off the field, Rooney sulked to one of the television cameras, saying that it was nice to see your own fans booing you. That's what loyal support is. You could practically smell the sarcasm coming from your TV set. Rooney later apologised for what he'd said, but it was not enough to stop yet another English tournament failure. 9. Alan Smith. Next up, we have a slightly less decorated English striker, but Alan Smith was every match for Rooney when it came to turning against his fans. The man who would eventually become Notts County's caretaker manager was not always a great role model. By the age of 23, the forward had already been shown 8 red cards, so he had a reputation as one of the Premier League's hotheads. And while playing for boyhood club Leeds in 2003, Smith got into a spot of bother with the Elland Road faithful. During the club's League Cup tie against Manchester United, one of the home support decided to throw a Lucozade bottle at Red Devils midfielder Chris Eagles. Disgusted by this behaviour, Smith picked up the bottle and pelted it back into the crowd. And as you'd expect, it did not find the fan who had thrown it and instead hit an innocent bystander. Smith was forced to apologise to the fans and visited the family of his victim. He was even arrested for the incident 2 weeks later, and to make it all the more embarrassing, it coincided with a call-up to the England squad. Like a mischievous schoolboy, he had to report to Sven-Göran Eriksson's office and explain himself on arrival. 8. Jamie Carragher. And now for another case of a player who gave back as good as he got. He may have eventually become a legend at Anfield, but Jamie Carragher was not always such a well-regarded professional, and fell victim to his own naivete in his early playing days. In an FA Cup tie away at Arsenal in 2002, the 23-year-old Carragher had a torrid afternoon. In the second half, he was stamped on by Dennis Bergkamp, and when the Dutchman was sent off, the home crowd targeted the Liverpool defender. One particularly thuggish gooner took it upon himself to throw a coin at Carragher during the melee, and like Alan Smith, he refused to stand for it. Carragher lobbed it straight back, and within seconds he was following Bergkamp down the tunnel. Liverpool fined Carragher £40,000 and he was banned for 3 games. But luckily for the young defender, the 2 Arsenal supporters who allegedly received injuries declined to press charges against him. 7. Anton Kanibolotskiy. Over to Ukraine, where fan trouble at football games is definitely not unheard of. Shakhtar Donetsk goalkeeper Anton Kanibolotskiy knows this all too well, as he got quite intimate with one particular supporter back in 2015. Shakhtar became embroiled in a bad-tempered clash away at FC Alexandria, and the game produced 6 yellow cards and a red for each side. Late on in the match, an Alexandria supporter decided he wanted a piece of the action and stormed the pitch to confront Kanibolotskiy. The man made his feelings about the opposition keeper very clear, sticking a middle finger up in his grill. Kanibolotskiy, as you can imagine, was not best pleased and gave the pitch invader a shove in the face. He knocked off his hat and seriously damaged his dignity. 6. Novak Martinovic and Razvan Stanca. Across the border in Romania, things turned much uglier in a league game between Steaua Bucharest and Petrolul Ploiesti in 2011. With Steaua on top in the heated clash, they were awarded a controversial penalty in the second half. This did not go down well with the Petrolul Ultras, and one particularly rowdy supporter, who was later found to be off his tits on drugs, took to the pitch to cause some trouble. And he certainly succeeded. His actions provoked Steaua players Novak Martinovic and Razvan Stanca, and they kicked the crazed fan to the floor. Both were sent off for their reaction, but they had reason to be annoyed. The Petrolul hooligan had attacked their teammate George Galamaz and left him with a broken cheekbone and temporary hearing loss. 5. Eran Zahavi. One man we reckon was taking notes that evening was Israeli footballer Eran Zahavi, who put some similar moves into practice 3 years later. Derbies are rarely friendly affairs, and Zahavi became well aware of this while playing for Maccabi Tel Aviv in 2014. He was a key player at the Israeli club, and he netted 125 goals in 3 years there. But one group of people who certainly didn't like this were the fans of Maccabi's local rivals, Hapoel. Zahavi had actually come up through the ranks at Hapoel and was not a popular man when, having originally left the club to try and make it in Serie A with Palermo, he returned to Tel Aviv to sign up with Maccabi in 2013. And when the forward scored an equalising penalty in the Tel Aviv derby a year later, it did not endear him any more to the Hapoel faithful. One Rooney fan was so offended that he approached Zahavi to have it out on the pitch. But it didn't end well for the shirtless hooligan, as the Maccabi player floored him with a karate kick to the chest, Nigel de Jong style. Zahavi was sent off, but he had already lit the fuse for a riot, and as more fans invaded the pitch in outrage, the ref was forced to abandon the match. 4. Dani Alves. Now for a legend who didn't need to use physical force to get his own back. Footballers have long had to deal with racist abuse in Spain, and Dani Alves had the perfect response while playing for Barcelona in 2014. During a crucial La Liga clash with Villarreal, the Brazilian right-back went to take a corner, only to find that one especially unsavoury Yellow Submarine fan had thrown a banana at his feet. One of the oldest and most unimaginative tricks of the racist football fan, banana throwing has often led to players getting into fights. But Alves had other ideas, casually picking up the fruit, peeling it and having a munch, before swinging in the corner without even acknowledging the man who had thrown it. The suspect was arrested not long after the incident, but he couldn't have anticipated the global response. Alves' reaction had gone viral and united much of the footballing world behind the Brazilian maestro. Within days, social media was full of videos of football stars eating bananas, sending a very clear message to racists everywhere. 3. Kevin Prince Boateng. But one player took things a step further. While playing for AC Milan, Kevin Prince Boateng came up against a throng of racist supporters in 2013. When the Rossoneri lined up in a mid-season friendly against 4th Division side Pro Patria, they expected nothing more than an easy victory to warm themselves up for the rest of the campaign. But as the game went on, relations between the Milan players and the opposing fans went horribly sour. Patria fans hurled abuse at the club's black players, including Sully Montari, Mbai Niang and Kevin Prince Boateng. After 25 minutes, Boateng decided he'd had enough and booted the ball into the crowd before walking off the pitch in protest. Although his teammates initially tried to persuade him to come back on, they showed their solidarity and joined the midfielder in marching off to the dressing room. The game was called off and Pro Patria were denied their big day. 2. Rab Douglas. Coming in a close second place is former Scotland keeper Rab Douglas, who has made a habit of getting into altercations with the fans. Back in 1998, Douglas played in Dundee's 100th League derby with bitter rivals Dundee United. The occasion clearly got the better of the supporters, who took it upon themselves to stage a pitch invasion when the match ended. Douglas was less than amused, and when one absolute tit of a United fan went to assault him, there was only one man coming out on top. Douglas quite literally ended up on top of the fan, wrestling him to the ground before being pulled off by the ref. 18 years later, Douglas had to bear the brunt of idiot fans once again while playing for Forfar at the age of 44. In a game against Airdrieonians, the goalkeeper was subjected to constant abuse and was even spat on by opposition fans behind the goal. At the final whistle, 2 of the supporters went to attack Douglas from behind, and they had to be fought off by the keeper and the players around him. Douglas said afterwards he had been called a Celtic paedophile by the Airdrie supporters and had punched both of his attackers in the face. Hard to argue with that. 1. Eric Cantona. In first place, we have one of the most outspoken footballers in history. Eric Cantona couldn't give less of a what people think of him if he tried. In 1995, Man United visited Crystal Palace in a game they needed to win to leapfrog Blackburn Rovers at the top of the Premier League. But the competitive element of the game was overshadowed massively by Cantona's run-in with a rowdy Palace supporter. The French forward had his dirty side too, and he got himself into trouble with the ref at Selhurst Park. Being the league's most flashy player, Cantona was used to receiving abuse from opposing supporters, but on this occasion, he'd had enough. As he made his way past the section of the crowd containing Palace thug Matthew Simmons, some particularly harsh insults struck a nerve with the Frenchman, and he retaliated with a flying kung fu kick. Cantona's studs went straight into Simmons' midriff, and United's talisman was banned for 9 months and ordered to do 120 hours of community service. But Cantona's moment of rage made him even more popular among his own fans, and the striker was backed up by a number of other professionals who were similarly sick of taking abuse. Amazingly, in 2016, Cantona came out and said that he should have hit Simmons harder.
So we hope you enjoyed that, and if you want to check out more of our videos, then click here on screen. Don't forget to like and subscribe and get on our Snapchat and our Twitter.